You're watching Fox 13's Good Day in high definition.
Okay, a big day for the defense in the Casey Anthony trial. First, the threat of contempt of court for the lead defense attorney, Jose Baez. In the middle of testimony by Dr. William Rodriguez, a forensic anthropologist, the judge stops the proceedings and scolds the defense. Here's how it went if you missed it. Let's listen.
It appears to me that this was quite intentional. This was not some inadvertent slip.
In us this morning is attorney Felix Vega with the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office. Let's get right into it. What prompted the judge to scold them? What was up with all that?
Here's what happened. In Florida, we have what's called open discovery, which means whenever a witness is going to testify in a trial, they have to turn over any reports or statements that they use, especially with expert witnesses. This was one of Judge Perry's big rules from months ago. If you guys have any expert witnesses, you have any reports that they're going to use, anything that they're going to testify about, they had to turn it over. Went for the state, also went for the defense. Jose Baez found himself in a position yesterday where this anthropologist started talking about duct tape evidence, which was not in his report, had never been disclosed to the prosecution. That really set off Judge Perry, and that's why he found himself in the situation that he did. It's not good for either side to ever get in that situation. Everyone wants to have the big surprise witness. It doesn't happen like that in Florida. You need to disclose everything.
You got to follow the rules.
Exactly. Bottom line.
Okay, we're in the home stretch of this case. Defense started putting on its case last week, and yesterday it looked like they finally got the break they were looking for with Dr. Spitz's testimony. Where do you think we're going with this? And, you know, that question still remains. Is Casey going to testify?
And that's the big question. I think yesterday with Dr. Spitz's testimony, they were able to finally create a hole in the state's case with someone who's very reputable. Dr. Spitz has been doing this for 56 years. He's performed over 60,000 autopsies. And for him to get up there and basically start chipping away at Dr. G's testimony from last week, it really kind of gave them some sort of an edge to say, okay, he's saying that he can't determine the manner of death whatsoever, whether it's homicide, accident, suicide, or natural causes. So now that opens up the fact that Casey may not have to testify because he doesn't know what the cause of death is, what the manner of death is. They can run with their accident theory and basically say, hey, even our witness doesn't know, and Dr. G doesn't know what caused Casey's death either. So it might kind of turn them away from having Casey testify. Will she, or will she want to? That still remains a million-dollar question, though.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the law this morning, because everyone's giving their opinions about this case. And my gosh, it was like Jerry Springer out there with the tickets and all that.
Yes, definitely.
People have their opinions on whether she's guilty or not. What is the judge going to tell them about the law and the rules they need to follow?
There's a couple of things, and we have a graphic I want to pull up here about reasonable doubt. And one of the things that they're going to look at is whether or not what the evidence they're going to have to consider, and it's the evidence introduced in this trial and to it alone that they are going to look for that proof of reasonable doubt. And it can come from three places: the evidence, a conflict in the evidence, or a lack of evidence. So they're going to have to look at everything, and this is important for everyone to realize, is that in the end they have to follow these rules, and they're going to be given a set of instructions, including reasonable doubt, and also some things about lesser included offenses that they're going to need to consider. So when they're looking at all the evidence in the case, conflict in the evidence, Dr. G versus Dr. Spitz, a lack of evidence. Roy Crunk, the meter reader, has not been called yet.
That's right.
And yesterday with Dr. Spitz saying that the bones and the remains have been tampered with, kind of lets people wonder, did Roy Crunk do it? Because we heard all about that in the news and also in opening statements from Jose Baez. It's one of the things that the defense may still bring him in and say, look, I found these remains in August, and either I moved them, and then miraculously he found them again in December. I think that's where the defense is going to have one opening coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Courtroom drama. That's why everybody's glued to this.
Yes, and fighting for tickets, which is highly unusual in these trials.
Yeah, it was kind of odd, but tells you a lot about things.
And society.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And is there anything we didn't cover on the Casey Anthony trial? We want to hear from you. We want to know. So please post the questions you have on my Facebook page. Just go to Facebook, put in Nerissa Prest, and Felix is going to answer some of them in our 8 o'clock hour.
Sounds good.
You. Okay, thanks, Felix. New video of two men who robbed a Polk County supermarket. This is the People all over the country are watching it. They're talking about it. So this hour, we are answering your questions about the Casey Anthony trial. And we are joined again by Felix Vega with the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office. And we want to remind viewers again that your office is not affiliated with this case or the prosecutors in this case at all.
That's correct, Nerissa.
Okay, so we asked for your questions on Facebook about this case, and we got some good ones. So are you ready?
Absolutely.
Let's go to the first one right here. This is from Mark H. He asks, will Casey ever take the stand?
And this is the question we've been asking over and over again and talking about over and over again. And it's really going to decide or come down to a couple of things. One is the defense going to put on enough of a case where they're going to be able to poke holes in the state's case, like we saw Dr. Spitz yesterday. And also, Sheena and I were actually talking earlier about Roy Kronk, the meter reader. Mm-hmm. Where is he in all this? He was not called in the state's case. He has information, or at least we think he has information about finding Kaylee's skull originally and then miraculously finding the bones later on in December. So if they can build enough reasonable doubt in their minds on the front end, they may not have to put Casey on the stand because, as we know, and we've talked about, her credibility at this point is severely in question.
Yeah.
You said the word shot.
In some people's eyes.
Right. And so that's going to be, they're going to have to weigh all this as the defense's case moves forward.
Okay. Our second Facebook question comes from Ron M. and he asks, pull it up. Thank you. If she's not convicted of murder, what other charges could Casey face? And
this is a great question. We were talking a lot about this yesterday. Under first-degree murder alone, there's actually second-degree murder that she can face. And if we can pull up that graphic with about second-degree murder, the first thing that they can prove is that she acted with a depraved mind. That's the only thing that they would have to prove other than premeditation. You can see there on the graphic, and without regard for human life. So the jury may look at these individual charges and say, well, we don't think it's premeditated. Let's look at second-degree murder. If they don't think second-degree murder is there, the next one down is manslaughter, and that's the next graphic we have. And it's not necessary for the state to prove that the defendant had the intent to cause the death, only the intent to commit an act that was not justified or excusable, which caused the death. In this case, that's going to be Kaylee. So those are two other options just under first-degree murder. She does have other charges on the indictment. Aggravated manslaughter of a child is one other thing. That's a first-degree felony. She can face 30 years on that. So there's a range of charges that they can consider aside from first-degree murder. Okay,
gotcha. Okay, and our third question comes from Wendell T. Can we pull that one up? Few people had the same question. Why are we spending so much time and taxpayers' money on this trial?
Three basics going back to constitutional law. One, everyone's presumed innocent. Everyone has the right to counsel. And third, everyone has the right to a jury trial. So when you get in a situation like this where there wasn't a body found, there was this unsolved mystery, you have someone in custody where you think, okay, we know Casey Anthony did it, we just don't know how she did it or where Kaylee is. So you had the investigation spiral from having Casey arrested to all these other things they had to investigate. And finally, it was 6 months later before they finally found Kaylee's remains. All that time in between, all those experts that had to be called in to figure out what happened to Kaylee, that all adds up. And I know people question the fact that we're spending all this money in the light of tax cuts or tax increases and spending cuts, but in the end, this person, she is on trial, and they're going to give her the best defense that they can, even if it has to come from the taxpayer's expense.
And you're involved in trials like this, not exactly like this, but where there's murder and there's children involved and all kinds of cases. And this just hits a lot of people's hearts, and we've been watching it on the media, so
right, it's gotten a lot of attention. The typical murder trial, I just did one last week, and it lasted about 4 days. So, but again, it depends on the circumstances and the facts of the case. If you have direct evidence linking the person to the cause of death and the crime itself, it makes it a lot easier to prove the case and also get through the trial a lot faster and for less money.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Is there an end in sight?
There is an end in sight. We're going to continue probably on with the defense's case. I expect to see more experts called and them still trying to poke holes in the prosecution's theory. Again, Casey Anthony is the wild card, and Roy Kronk, where is the meter reader? That's going to be the big one to watch for, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you so much, Felix.
Thanks, Nerissa, for having me.
And we'll be right back.